Hi everyone. So we'll kick things off with talking about the things that we'll need for this project. I've got here two pixel icons. I have a cat that's idle and a cat that's doing a simple meow. And lastly, we have our meow sound. You can find all of these on the GitHub that I'll link in the description below. So let's get started with creating our Android app. So I already created an empty views activity here. So the next thing we'll do is we're going to add all of the things that we downloaded into our project over here. So where you'll place the cat icons is inside of this drawable folder. And there's a very simple way to do this. I personally just like to drag and drop. It's the easiest way to do things. So I'll just drag the cat idle icon, and then if you see this pop up over here, just click on refactor, let it do its thing. We'll do the same thing for cat meow. Move it over, click on refactor, and we're done. Now, for the MP3 sound for the meow, it's a little bit different here. You're going to have to first start off by creating a new folder. So you can't just drop it into this drawable folder here. You're going to right click on the res, which is also short for resources, click on new, click on Android resource directory, and we'll call this folder the raw folder. And the resource type is also going to be raw. So this raw folder is where you'll place your MP3 sounds because it's a raw file. You don't want your Android to interpret it as anything else. And we'll do a simple drag and drop into here. And we'll click on refactor. Now, the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to change our app icon. I like to do these things in the beginning so we can just get them out of the way because they're pretty easy to do. So if you want to change the icon of your app, you'll probably notice like the default one looks like this when you launch your Android app. Personally, I would like to take this icon here and turn it into my app icon. So we'll do a right click. And if you see the copy path reference, we're just going to select on the absolute path, and then we're going to continue with creating the app icon. So we'll click on res, uh, click on new, click on image asset, and for over here, for the path, we're just going to paste in the path that we have. So now you can see we've got our idle cat over here, but it's pretty big. So there is a way for you to resize it down. There is also the trim option, but personally, I like, or I guess you could do it this way. So you can see I've kind of got my cat centered around here. You can also choose the background layer. So you can, if you'd like the green to turn into a solid color, we can just change this to white, and then you can see our app icon would look like this. And once you have your mind settled on how you would like it to look, you can click on next. And this basically is just telling you what it will overwrite. So it'll overwrite the default files. And then you can just click on finish here and get that out of the way. The next thing that you want to do is you want to create your animation file. So it's also pretty simple here. You're just going to do a right click on drawable, click on new, click on drawable resource file. And here you're going to write catanim.xml as your file name. And for your root element, we're going to choose the animation list over here. And we're going to click on OK. So that'll generate our root file for us, or the skeleton at least. And then what we're going to do is we're going to write some code in here. So the very first thing that you'd want to add is the Android one shot. So this is to say that I only want our animation sequence to play once. I don't really want it to continue on forever and ever. And we're going to start by adding our items in here. And so for our item here, we're going to select drawable. And you can already see that it's suggesting us some options here. So this is how you would like your animation sequence to go. So I want to first start off with my cat being idle. And then I want to, I guess I could copy and paste this. And then I'd like my cat doing a simple meow, and then I would like it to go back to being idle again. Now, another element that we can add here is the duration. You can already see it's selecting it for us. So the duration is for how long would you like your animation to play? So I want my cat to be idle for 100 milliseconds, and then for the duration of my cat meowing, I would like it to be 400 milliseconds. And then the other duration for the cat going back to being idle would be 100 milliseconds. And so then we have our animation list right here. Right. And if you notice these like little like squiggly lines, it's basically just telling you that you don't really have to add this ending tag over here. You could simply do something like this, and then it's a self-closing tag, so you can see the squiggly lines are already disappearing. And that is pretty much it for our animation file. Next, we'll move on to creating our activity XML file. So you'll find that over here in layout. I'm pretty sure it's already opened up over here in your tabs, but you can also find it in the layout folder. And then we'll start adding our views in here. So our app is pretty simple. We simply have an image view and a button. So we'll make sure to add those two things in. But when you first open up Activity Main, you'll notice this thing over here. So we're just going to go ahead and delete it. Okay, that's not what it did. We're just going to go ahead and delete it. And now we can find it to be empty. We're going to drag our image view and place it right smack dab in the middle. And we'll select our cat idle icon, drop it in there, and we will select the center over here and make sure it's horizontally centered. And then I will select next the vertically centered. So now you can see it's in the middle. We can also resize it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this a little bit tiny. Okay, so we'll just place it in the middle right here. We can add a button in here. So I'm just going to drag and drop our button right here. And then similar to what we did to the cat image, we can center it horizontally. So now you can see that it's centered horizontally this way, and we can center it vertically as well. So we'll see that it's always right underneath our cat image. And if you want to change things like the background or the text of the image, I'll show you how to do that right now. And so if you select this icon here, it'll show you the coding side. You could also like get a split view right here. You can see it side by side. So a specific number in mind for what you would like the layout width and height to be. You can also just define that in the numbers over here. So I'm going to change this both to 200 dp, and everything else you can see is already like by default. Now, to change the text over here, we can change this attribute right here for button. So I'm just going to write click me, exclamation mark. You can also choose to change the size. So if you type in text size and write something like, I don't know, 20 SP, you'll see that the size of the text changes as well. So I would like to change the background color of this app. So we can also do that quite easily by going up here to the very top and writing Android background. And you can see that it already suggests for you the color white. That's because white is already written by default. If you go to the values and color XML, you can see that they've already written out some shortcut colors for you. So instead of writing this white color code, you can simply type in white. But if there is another color code that you would like, you can also replace this and change it to whatever hex color you want. So I'm just gonna try a random one here, and you can see it's a different color. Or you can stick to the default color code, or you can use the colors XML and just write white. And also change the color of our button. So if you scroll down to our button over here and you select background tint, you can change the color of the button. I already have a default color that I'd like to use, so I'm gonna paste this in here, and I forgot the hex right there. So you can see we've got this nice little orange tint. The next thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to change the font style of this text over here. So we can do that quite simply by going on to Google. So I'll show you guys here how to do that. So if you go to Google and you select on Google Fonts, you can browse through the multitude of fonts that they have, but I really like this Cal Sans one. So I will click on Get Font, and then you can see it's selected over here, and they give you the option to download all. So I'm just going to click on Download. It'll show up in my zip folder, so I'm just going to click on this, open it up. I actually go back to my Downloads folder and do a right click on here. You'll see the option to click on Extract All. And once that's extracted, you can see that we have this font file over here. So I'm going to do what I like to do best, and that is the drag and drop option. So we can simply drag this and drop it into or we can actually create a new folder here. So I'm going to click on this resource one, click on this new resource directory, change it to, you'll see an option here that says font. Click on OK, drag and drop this over here, and you'll see the refactor option. So we'll just click on that. You'll probably notice there is like a red squiggly line indicating an error. This is quite common for the names, so you can just right click on it, rename, and change it to Cal Sans, so something simple, and click on refactor. And now you can see the red squiggly line is gone. So after you've got that downloaded and moved over, we're going to change our font. If you go to this button here, you can right font family, you'll see this option show up. And here you can see it'll suggest for you from the font folder to select Cal Sans. And there we have it, our little button. And so when you're satisfied with how your app is starting to look, a good way to check how it'll look on different devices is to click on this layout validation button over here. It'll show you what it looks like on a tablet, on a medium-sized tablet, a medium-sized phone, and whatnot. And so as you can see, nothing is too out of place or weird looking. We'll move on to the coding portion. All right, so you'll find your coding portion inside of Kotlin. I'm actually going to resize this here so we can see where it is. You'll find it inside of your package and you'll click on main activity. There are a couple of things that you'll need to import. One of them is this animation drawable, and we'll also need our media player. And so we'll start off by creating some variables. So I'll make these ones private here. We'll create the late init var. We'll first create our animation frame variable, and this is the type animation drawable. The next variable that we'll create is for our media player. So this is the one that'll help play our meow sound. So I'll just name it meow sound. And the type of variable is media player. Then we'll create our image views. So we don't really need to create this as private. We can just write this in as image, and we'll see, we'll define this out to be our image view. And so you can select this here and it'll automatically import that for you at the very top. Next, we'll create an image var. Sorry, not our image var, but we'll create our cat button. And similarly, like what we did before, we'll start by typing out button, and then it'll automatically suggest for us this button, which will import it at the very top. So once we have our variables all set up, we'll next move to this onCreate function where we can start writing code in here as well. So the first thing that we want to do in this is to use the FindViewById method. So every view here is associated by a certain ID. So you'll notice it over here and over here. So we can see the ID of this is image view and the ID of this is button. If you'd like to change this to like a different name, you can always do a right click, click on factor, click on rename, and we'll just change this to cat icon. And we'll just click on refactor. And instead of just simply changing it over here, you'll notice that by clicking on the refactor button, not only does this change it over here, but it also changes it everywhere else where this is being referenced. So I'll keep the ID for button as the same, and the only thing I've changed is this one up here. We'll head over to cat, our main activity file, and I'll start by defining or writing out our cat image variable. So then I'll set this to find view by ID. And so this finds the view using our ID. So we'll start by writing r dot ID, and it'll suggest for you your cat icon. The next thing you want to do is do the same thing for cat button. So we'll use find view by ID. We'll start by typing r dot ID, and we'll select the button over here. The next thing that we'd like to do is to add a set on click listener to our button. So this will play our animation once we click on the button. So I'll type in cat button set on click listener, and you'd want to select the first option here to get those squiggly lines in. And we'll start by adding the image resource. So adding our cat animation to our cat image view. So I'll type cat image dot set image resource right here. And inside of here, we're going to write r dot drawable. And this will indicate our drawable folder. And the next thing you want to do is you want to specify that we're looking for our animation file, which is cat underscore anim over here. We'll assign this drawable and turn it into a animation drawable object. So I'm going to assign this to our frame anim variable, and I'll reference our cat image here. I'll reference the drawable. And I'm going to write as animation drawable to turn it into this animation drawable object. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we start the animation after we have this sort of UI update. So we want to give our Android enough time to make sure that it's doing this before jumping right into starting the animation. So we want to make sure the animation is being properly set up first. So in order to do that, we're going to start by writing cat image and dot post. And inside of here, after the UI has been properly updated, that's when we're going to start our animation. So I'm just going to write start over here. And so that takes care of the animation portion of it. Now we want to make sure that we also have our cat meowing. So we already have a meow defined up here. So let's actually set that variable down here. So I'm going to write meow sound is equals to our media player. Our media player dot create. And inside of create, we're going to reference this and our raw meow sound right here. So this is referencing the MP3 meow sound that we have inside of our raw folder. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to play your meow sound. So I'm just going to write the start function over here and it'll start meowing. So when you do create this, it creates it as um, it takes up memory in your app. So you want to make sure that when you are done playing the sound and you remove your app or you delete it, that you want to release that memory away. So in order to do that, we're going to start by writing this, we're going to override this function, the onDestroy method, and we'll basically inherit all the default methods, but the one thing that we want to add in here is our release. So we'll add that release function in here, and that is pretty much it for our app.